if you invested $1,000 into NVIDIA at its 1999 IPO, today that could be worth millions of dollars, the kind of money that could buy a home outright in many parts of the country. But here's the real story. NVIDIA did not become one of the most important companies in the world by accident. This was not just a lucky chip company that happened to be in the right place when AI exploded. NVIDIA spent roughly 3 decades building something the world did not fully understand yet. A company once known mostly by gamers became the backbone of the biggest technology race in America. OpenAI needs GPUs. Microsoft needs GPUs. Google needs GPUs. Tesla, xAI, MIT, Berkeley, they all need computing power. And sitting right in the middle of that demand is NVIDIA. But the bigger question is this: is NVIDIA simply selling chips? Or is NVIDIA building the railroad tracks for America, and maybe the world, to enter the age of artificial intelligence? Today, we are going to break down the story of NVIDIA. How a company that almost died because it chose the wrong way to draw triangles became one of the most important companies in the global economy, and why its future may decide whether NVIDIA becomes the Cisco of the AI bubble or the Microsoft of the next era. I'm Easy Finance. To understand NVIDIA, we have to go back to the early 1990s. At that time, Silicon Valley was still a very different place. Google did not exist, Facebook did not exist, the iPhone was still more than a decade away. The internet was not yet something every person carried in their pocket. Personal computers were starting to appear in American homes and offices, but for most people, they were still pretty basic machines. You used them for word processing, spreadsheets, office software, maybe a few simple games. In simple terms, the PC back then was like a hard-working office employee. Useful, serious, productive. Not the kind of machine that could create realistic worlds, fast-moving games, or beautiful 3D graphics. If you wanted serious 3D graphics back then, you usually needed expensive workstations from companies like Silicon Graphics. These machines could cost tens of thousands of dollars. The average PC, that was mostly for typing documents and doing Excel. But while most people saw computers as office tools, 3 engineers saw something very different. Their names were Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis Preem. Jensen Huang was born in Taiwan and moved to the United States as a child. He studied electrical engineering and worked at AMD and LSI Logic before starting NVIDIA. But Jensen's story is not just a story about engineering. Before he became the CEO of a trillion-dollar company, he worked at Denny's. He washed dishes, cleaned tables, served customers. In other words, before he was serving Wall Street, he was serving coffee. That is a very American founder story. Chris Malachowski and Curtis Preem came from Sun Microsystems, one of the most important technology companies of that era. Together, the 3 founders believed something that was not obvious at the time. The future of computing would not only be text and numbers, it would be images, motion, virtual worlds, 3D graphics, simulation. And if that future was real, the PC would need a new kind of chip, not just a CPU that tried to do everything, but a specialized chip designed to handle graphics. Today, that sounds obvious. In 1993, it was a massive bet, because nobody knew if PC gaming would become huge. Nobody knew if everyday consumers would care about 3D graphics. And nobody knew if a tiny startup could survive in the brutal semiconductor industry. But in April 1993, NVIDIA was born. The company started with around $40,000 in a small office in Sunnyvale, California. The name NVIDIA also has an interesting origin. Early project files were labeled NV, short for next version. Later, the founders searched for words containing NV and landed on NVIDIA, inspired by the Latin word invidia, meaning envy. The idea was simple. They wanted to build chips so powerful that the entire industry would be jealous. But before NVIDIA made the industry jealous, it almost made investors jealous of the people who did not invest. In 1995, NVIDIA launched its first product, NV1. NV1 was ambitious. It was not just a 3D graphics chip. It also handled audio. It even supported game controller functions. In theory, NVIDIA was trying to build an all-in-one multimedia chip. That sounds smart, but in technology, sounding smart is not enough. The market has to agree with you. And NVIDIA made one critical technical decision that almost killed the company. They chose a graphics approach based around quadratic texture mapping, while the industry was moving toward triangles. To simplify it, when a computer creates a 3D object, it breaks the surface into tiny pieces. Those pieces can be represented in different ways. NVIDIA believed its method had advantages, but there was a problem. Technology does not always win because it is technically elegant. It wins because the ecosystem adopts it. And then Microsoft entered the story. Microsoft launched Windows 95 and DirectX. DirectX became extremely important for PC gaming. And DirectX supported the triangle-based approach that the industry was moving toward, not NVIDIA's original direction. Suddenly, NVIDIA had built a road, but the rest of the world chose Microsoft's highway. Game developers did not want to build specifically for NV1. They wanted to follow the common standard. And when developers do not support your platform, even a clever chip can die very quickly. NV1 failed. Sales were disappointing, cash started running out, NVIDIA was close to collapse after its very first major product. And this gives us the first big lesson in NVIDIA's story. In technology, a good product is not enough. You have to be aligned with the ecosystem. Many companies do not die because they are stupid. They die because they choose the wrong standard. NVIDIA was very close to death, but the story was about to get even stranger. After NV1 failed, NVIDIA places hopes on a deal with Sega. The company was supposed to help develop a chip for Sega's upcoming Dreamcast console. This was supposed to be NVIDIA's lifeline. But while working on the project, Jensen realized something painful. NVIDIA was still going in the wrong direction. The world had moved toward triangles. NVIDIA could not keep fighting reality. Jensen had two choices. Option 1, stay quiet, keep building the product, take the money, and hope the company survives. Option 2, tell Sega the truth, that NVIDIA's approach was wrong, and risk losing the deal completely. If he chose option 1, NVIDIA might live a little longer, but deliver a product that was not right for Sega. If he chose option 2, NVIDIA might die immediately. So Jensen chose a third option. He told the truth, and still asked for money. He went to Sega and admitted that NVIDIA's technology was not the right path for Dreamcast. He told Sega they should choose another supplier. But then, he made a bold request. NVIDIA needed cash to survive. If Sega did not pay, the company might go bankrupt. From a business perspective, Sega had little reason to help a contractor that could not deliver. But Sega's leadership saw something in NVIDIA. The company had failed, yes, but the team was talented. They were honest, and they were willing to face reality. So Sega gave NVIDIA enough money to survive. That money became oxygen. It gave NVIDIA a few more months, and Jensen used that time to do something brutal but necessary. He abandoned the old architecture, he cut staff, he refocused the company, and he rebuilt NVIDIA around the direction the market had chosen. This moment mattered because it did not just save NVIDIA financially, it shaped NVIDIA's culture. Face the facts. Admit when you are wrong, move fast, do not protect your ego at the expense of the company. Many companies die because they are wrong, but even more companies die because they know they are wrong and still try to prove they are right. NVIDIA survived because it was willing to turn around. In 1997, NVIDIA launched RIVA 128. This time they got it right. RIVA 128 supported the direction of DirectX and the PC gaming market much better than NV1, and the results were dramatic. NVIDIA sold roughly 1 million chips in just a few months. This was not just a successful product, it was proof that NVIDIA was alive. Not barely alive, this is back in the game. Then, in 1999, NVIDIA launched the GeForce 256 and popularized the term GPU. Graphics Processing Unit. Before this, much of the graphics workload still depended heavily on the CPU, but GeForce moved more of that work to the GPU. Here is the simple way to think about it. A CPU is like a brilliant professor. It can solve very difficult problems, but often one step at a time. A GPU is like a massive classroom full of students. Each student solves a small problem, but thousands of them work at the same time. That is parallel computing. And for games, parallel computing is incredibly powerful. A game has to process millions of pixels, lighting effects, surfaces, movement, characters, explosions, shadows, and textures, all at once. But here's the part almost nobody understood at the time. This kind of parallel computing would not only matter for gaming, it would become the foundation of modern AI. The world just did not know it yet. If RVA 128 saved NVIDIA, CUDA turned NVIDIA into an empire. By the mid-2000s, researchers and engineers were realizing something important. GPUs were not only good at drawing images, they were also extremely good at parallel computation. And many of the biggest problems in science and industry require parallel computation. Climate simulation, oil and gas exploration, molecular modeling, genomics, physics simulation, and eventually training neural networks. Jensen Huang saw this early. He asked a simple question: why should GPUs only be used to make video game hair look more realistic? Why not use them to solve the biggest computational problems in science and business? The problem was that programming GPUs was hard. So in 2006, NVIDIA launched CUDA, Compute Unified Device Architecture. CUDA allowed developers to use familiar programming languages like C and C++ to unlock the power of GPUs for general computing, not just graphics. This was one of the most important decisions in NVIDIA's history, but at the time, Wall Street did not fully understand it. A company known for gaming graphics cards was spending money to build a computing platform for scientists, universities, supercomputers, and industrial researchers? That sounded strange. It was like watching a fast food restaurant secretly build rocket engines in the back kitchen. CUDA increased costs. NVIDIA had to support hardware, software, libraries, tools, and developers. And many gaming customers probably did not care about CUDA at all. But Jensen believes something important. Some markets require you to build the infrastructure before demand explodes. NVIDIA was building the highway before anyone saw the traffic. And for years, that highway looked pretty empty, until 2012. In 2012, an AI model called AlexNet shocked the computer vision world. Alex Krzyzewski, Ilya Sutskever, and Jeffrey Hinton used NVIDIA GPUs to train a deep neural network for the ImageNet competition. The result was a breakthrough. AlexNet dramatically outperformed older approaches. This became one of the key moments in modern AI. After AlexNet, researchers at universities and technology labs began to realize something. If you want powerful AI, you need more than clever algorithms. You need data, you need large models, and you need massive computing power. NVIDIA GPUs were perfect for this, and CUDA, the strange software bet Wall Street once questioned, became a strategic advantage. From that point forward, NVIDIA was no longer just selling hardware. It was selling an ecosystem. And this is critical. A competitor can design a chip, but to beat NVIDIA, they do not only need a faster chip. They need to convince researchers, engineers, startups, software libraries, cloud providers, and data centers to move away from CUDA. That is not easy. It is like trying to compete with the iPhone by making a nice-looking phone. You are not just competing with the phone. You're competing with iOS, the App Store, developers, accessories, user habits, the entire ecosystem. In AI, CUDA became part of NVIDIA's moat. Then came late 2022. ChatGPT launched, and almost overnight, America woke up to AI. AI was no longer something hidden inside research labs. It was on the screen in front of ordinary people. It could write, code, summarize, analyze data, create images, answer customer questions, help with research, and change how companies operate. Silicon Valley entered a new gold rush. In the old California gold rush, people ran west to dig for gold. In the AI gold rush, companies are racing to buy GPUs. And in a gold rush, the safest money is often not made by the miners. It is made by the people selling shovels. NVIDIA is selling the shovels, but these shovels are not cheap. Chips like the H100 became some of the most sought-after assets in technology. Big tech started spending tens of billions of dollars on AI data centers. Microsoft needs AI infrastructure for OpenAI, Azure, Office, and Windows. Meta needs GPUs to train Llama and push AI across Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Google has its own TPUs, but is still deeply involved in the AI infrastructure race. Amazon needs AI to defend AWS. Tesla and xAI need computing power for models, autonomy, and robotics. In America, AI is not just a product trend, it is a corporate power struggle. And NVIDIA sits in a beautiful position. It sells to almost everyone. If Microsoft wins, NVIDIA sells GPUs. If Meta spends more on AI, NVIDIA sells GPUs. If a startup raises money to build an AI model, it rents cloud computing, and the cloud provider buys GPUs. If governments want AI infrastructure, NVIDIA is there too. NVIDIA does not need to know exactly which AI app wins in the end. As long as everyone keeps digging, NVIDIA sells the shovels. But even that metaphor is incomplete, because NVIDIA is not only selling GPUs, it sells systems. GPUs, CUDA, networking, servers, AI libraries, enterprise software, model optimization tools, developer platforms. NVIDIA is becoming a full-stack AI infrastructure company, not just a gaming graphics company, not just a chip company, but a company building what Jensen Huang calls the AI factory. A factory that does not produce cars or steel. It produces intelligence. Tokens, predictions, recommendations, code, designs, scientific insights, business automation. That is the bigger vision. While the world was still fighting to get H100s, NVIDIA introduced the next generation, Blackwell. Blackwell shows how NVIDIA thinks about the future. AI may sound digital and abstract, but behind every model is something very physical. Chips, servers, cables, cooling, electricity, land, water, and operating cost. In the United States, AI data centers are becoming a major infrastructure issue. States are thinking about power grids, energy supply, land use, cooling, and long-term planning. So the AI race is not only about who has the fastest chip. It is about who can deliver more computation with less energy, lower cost, and better reliability. NVIDIA understands this. That is why it does not only design chips, it designs full systems. This is the logic of the AI factory. In the old industrial economy, factories produce cars, steel, chemicals, phones, and semiconductors. In the AI economy, factories will produce digital intelligence. That may sound abstract, but here's the simple version. If oil powered the industrial age, AI compute may power the digital age, and NVIDIA wants to sell the engines. Another idea Jensen Huang talks about often is sovereign AI. The concept is simple. If AI becomes as important as electricity, telecom, the internet, or defense, then every country will want its own AI capability. No nation wants its language, culture, data, history, and digital intelligence to depend completely on models controlled by another country. For Europe, AI is tied to regulation, privacy, and data sovereignty. For Japan, South Korea, India, and countries in the Middle East, AI is a chance to upgrade their economies. This is why NVIDIA is not only selling chips to companies, it is selling a vision to governments. The message is, if you want your own AI future, you need your own AI infrastructure. And if this trend continues, NVIDIA's market is not just Silicon Valley. It is not just Wall Street. It is national governments. That means NVIDIA has moved from being a graphics card company to becoming part of global technology strategy. Technology is only part of the NVIDIA story. To understand NVIDIA, you also have to understand its culture. Jensen Huang manages a company in a very unusual way. First, he likes a flat structure. Many CEOs of huge companies only have a small number of direct reports. Jensen is famous for having many more people report directly to him. Why? Because he does not want information distorted by too many management layers. In technology, slow information can kill you. If an engineer sees a problem today, but the CEO hears about it 3 months later, the market may have already moved on. Second, NVIDIA has a culture of brutal honesty. That lesson goes back to the Sega moment. If something is wrong, say it. If a project is not working, stop it. If the market changes, turn around. That sounds simple, but in big companies, it is very hard. Many companies do not die because they lack money. They die because their ego becomes too expensive. NVIDIA survived because it learned how to abandon the wrong path. Third, NVIDIA keeps a sense of urgency. Jensen has often pushed the idea that the company is always close to being replaced. Even after becoming one of the most valuable companies in the world, NVIDIA still acts like danger is right around the corner. And honestly, that fear is rational. Nokia once dominated phones. BlackBerry once owned the professional smartphone market. Yahoo was once the front door of the internet. Technology does not care how great you used to be. If you slow down, you disappear. NVIDIA understands that, and that fear of being replaced is one reason the company keeps betting on the next wave. NVIDIA does not want to stop at generative AI. It is placing bets on several future waves. The first is Omniverse. While Meta's metaverse was often marketed as a virtual social world, NVIDIA's Omniverse is more practical. It focuses on industrial simulation. Companies can create digital twins of factories, warehouses, robots, supply chains, and production lines. Then, they can test changes in simulation before making expensive mistakes in the real world. Imagine an American auto factory. Before moving machines, changing workflows, or deploying robots, the company can simulate the entire operation digitally. Testing in the real world is expensive. Testing in a virtual world is cheaper, faster, and safer. The second bet is physical AI. Jensen believes the next major wave of AI will move beyond screens. AI will not only answer questions, it will control robots, self-driving cars, industrial machines, drones, medical devices, and physical systems. NVIDIA's robotics platforms are aimed at this future. Before robots can work in the real world, they need to practice millions of times in simulation. In simple terms, robots need a gym, but their gym is inside a computer, and NVIDIA wants to provide both the robot brain and the training environment. The third bet is AI for science and biology. NVIDIA is pushing platforms that can help researchers work on proteins, molecules, drug discovery, and material science. If AI can shorten the time needed to discover new drugs or simulate biological systems, the impact goes far beyond chatbots. Then GPUs are not just helping people generate pictures of cats wearing astronaut helmets. They could help discover medicine, design new materials, and solve some of the hardest problems in science. That is the larger NVIDIA vision, not just AI that chats, AI that runs factories, trains robots, accelerates science, and changes how the physical economy works. However, a serious analysis cannot only tell the positive story. NVIDIA is extremely powerful, but it is not invincible. The first risk is valuation. When a company becomes priced for perfection, even a slight slowdown can hurt the stock. A great company is not automatically a great investment at every price. This is one of the classic lessons from the dot-com bubble. Cisco was a real company, it had real products, the internet was a real trend. But expectations ran too far ahead of reality. The business survived, but the stock suffered. That is a risk investors must always remember. The second risk is that NVIDIA's biggest customers want to build their own chips. Google has TPUs, Amazon has Trainium and Inferentia. Microsoft has its own AI chip efforts. Meta has strong incentives to reduce infrastructure costs. These companies are NVIDIA customers, but they also have reasons to reduce dependence on NVIDIA. That does not mean they can replace NVIDIA easily. CUDA, performance, networking, and the software ecosystem are still major advantages. But when your biggest customers are also trying to become less dependent on you, that is a risk. The third risk is supply chain dependence. NVIDIA is fabless. It designs chips but does not manufacture them itself. It depends heavily on TSMC for advanced manufacturing. This model gives NVIDIA high margins and flexibility, but it also creates risk around manufacturing capacity, geopolitics, and the semiconductor supply chain. In today's world, chips are not just a business issue, they are a national security issue. The fourth risk is the real profitability of AI. Right now, big tech is spending massive amounts of money on AI infrastructure. But eventually, the market will ask, how much revenue does AI generate? How much cost does AI save? Can AI profits justify hundreds of billions of dollars in data center investment? If the answer is yes, NVIDIA may continue to benefit. If the answer comes slower than expected, the stock could face pressure. So for investors, NVIDIA is an exceptional company, but it is not a risk-free story. No company is. The story of NVIDIA is not just the story of a stock that went up. It is the story of a company that repeatedly saw the future before the market fully understood it. NVIDIA saw 3D graphics when PCs were still mostly office machines. It saw the GPU when PC gaming was still young. It saw CUDA when Wall Street did not understand why a gaming chip company cared about scientific computing. It saw AI before ChatGPT turned artificial intelligence into a global race. And what makes NVIDIA special is not only that its chips are powerful. What makes NVIDIA special is that it built an ecosystem that much of the AI industry now depends on. From a small company born in the 1990s to the center of America's AI race, NVIDIA proves something important. In technology, the biggest winners are not always the companies chasing today's demand. Sometimes the biggest winners are the ones building infrastructure for a future most people cannot see yet. But for investors, the final question remains. Is NVIDIA the Cisco of the AI boom? A great company that becomes too expensive because expectations get too high? Or is it the Microsoft of the AI age, a platform that can dominate for decades? The answer depends on whether AI truly becomes infrastructure for the entire economy. But for now, one thing is hard to deny. If AI is America's new gold rush, NVIDIA is selling the most expensive shovels in the world. I'm Easy Finance. If you want to understand the companies shaping the future of the global economy, make sure to subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.